Hello, everybody. All right, so we are here today to talk about what happens when we go to graph a polynomial and we don't know any of its factors. Dun, dun, dun. So we are going to need our graphing calculator. If you don't have that with you, you should definitely get that out right now, or at least go to Desmos or something. So anyway, you need your calculator. And you are probably going to need to make sure you know how to use synthetic division. All right, so these are two things we are going to need. Sometimes in a problem, like number 1, you are going to be given a suggestion for a factor. You're actually not only going to be given a suggestion, you're going to be told that something is a factor of a given polynomial. And so what does that tell you about the graph of y equals x cubed minus 4x squared plus x plus 6? Well, if x minus 2 is the factor, then if we set that equal to 0, x equals 2 would be an x-intercept, meaning the point 2, 0 has to be somewhere on our graph. So that point's going to be not there, just kidding, over here at 2, 0. Okay, so that means we have found one of our total of 3 x-intercepts that we could potentially have based on the fact that there is a degree of 3. So before we do anything else with that, the other thing we know with only a little bit of work is our y-intercept. Remember that a y-intercept is when x equals 0. So if I think about this equation, if I substitute 0 in for each of my x values, I'm going to end up getting a y value of 6. So that means we have a y-intercept when we put those two pieces together of 0, 6. So up here on our y-axis, we're going to have a point at 0, 6. All right. So far what I've done is I've read my problem and I have tried to process what all of that means in step 1. X minus 2 being a factor means I have an x-intercept at 2, and then if I have this polynomial, that very last number essentially is my y-intercept. Now, to get the rest of my factors so that I can draw the graph of this polynomial, I need to take this factor that I was given, all right, which is x, and then it's x-intercept, so I'm going to take 2, and I'm going to synthetically divide the rest of my polynomial by that factor. So 1, -4, 1, and 6 are my leading coefficients, or my coefficients for each of my terms. So I drop my 1, I multiply and add, -2, -4, and if you'll notice, after I do my whole multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, I get 0, yay, which I should have gotten. I know that I'm supposed to get 0 because I was told that this is an x-intercept and a factor. So what does this help me get the rest of, though? Well, if originally I had x cubed and I divided it by x to the first, that means this is x squared left over minus 2x minus 3. And so I'm going to check to see if we can factor this. So I need to see if I can multiply to -3 and add up to -2, which I think I can with -3 and +1. Yep, because I get 1x and -3x's, that's going to be -2x in the middle. Now I can take these other factors and I can say that I know x is going to be equal to 3 and x is going to be equal to -1 because I set each of those factors equal to 0 in my head. So now I've got -1 as an x-intercept and I have 3 as an x-intercept, right? And I'm just going to rewrite the other 0 I have from before, which is +2. So I've got 1, 2, 3 x-intercepts. So I have all my x-intercepts. I have my y-intercept. And now I just need to look back at my leading term. So my leading term is 1x cubed. That means my end behavior is going to be down and then up because overall this needs to end positively because we have a positive leading term and we have an odd degree. So that means my ending arrow should point up, my first arrow on the far left should point down, and in between, I need to connect those points with 2 turns, okay? So that is how you would do a problem where you're given a polynomial. So you're given a polynomial, and you're asked to graph it without your calculator and without any other information other than one factor. So I'd like you to take some time and try the next example problem on your own. And if you get stuck, then you can start the video back up and check your answer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I had said before, you know some things just by reading the problem and processing what that information is saying and interpreting that. So the first 2 things you should do is notice that x plus 4 as a factor means that x equals -4, and it's an x-intercept. So I've graphed that on my picture right here. And then I also took a look and I noticed that the last number in my polynomial was 4, and so that means that y equals 4 is my y-intercept. From there, I synthetically divided by that x value that I knew about, and I got a remainder of 0, which means I was correct in interpreting that. Then comes having my leftover polynomial, which I rewrote with my x values in it so that I have a quadratic. And then I factored it out to get 2 more x-intercepts. Now, those 2 values, which are -1/2 and -1, we can graph on our grid right here. So -1/2 is going to be between 0 and -1, and then -1 is going to be very, very close to it. So we have, once again, a cubed polynomial that has a positive leading term. So we're going to end up, and when we do that, we need to make sure we go through both our y-intercept and that x-intercept. And so then if I work my way backwards, I'm going to turn, I'm going to have another turn, and then I'm going to end up having that left-hand side pointing downwards, okay? And as I said before, your 4 points that you have in your graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts, those along with the overall end behavior, those need to match. Beyond that, if your minimums and maximums are a little bit different than mine, that's okay. All right. Now, I'd like you to keep going and try problem number 3, and then there'll be one more for you to work on that you're definitely going to need your calculator for. All right, folks, so your third problem incorporates -1 as your first x-intercept, which I've graphed. And then we synthetically divide by that, so we get 0 to confirm that it is, in fact, a root. We also, by the way, before we synthetically divide, or go back to that, can't forget about our y-intercept, which is at 6. So then factoring takes a little bit of work, a little bit more guess and check than some of you might like. So you might need to think about your split the middle situation and, think about, okay, if I multiply the 60, what are some ways that I could add up to -17? And you'd have to split it with -12 and -5. And then when you group that using your split the middle method, you should still get to these same factors, which give us 6/5, which is a little bit more than 1, and 1/2. So that's right in between 0 and 1. And then again, we have that same sort of end behavior. So we're pointing down, coming through, and then ending up. All right, now this very, very last problem, we've purposely given you a polynomial, but we didn't tell you any of the factors. So what I'm going to leave you with is just reading you these directions, and you can figure out this last one on your own and check the key to make sure you got your right answer. So first thing you need to do is make sure you use your calculator. So go to y equals and type in this equation in your calculator, and then use the table in your calculator to help you figure out one of your y values. All right, you just need one, but if there's more than one, great. Then use that value to determine a factor and divide by that value, okay? And once you have that one divided out, determine the other factors by doing more division or more factoring. Your call, all right? So this last one you are going to need to use your calculator for, just so that you can get started, because we didn't give you a starting point for this particular problem. All right, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. See you soon.